the security situation in the northwest and southwest region of Cameroon deteriorates, Muslim faithfuls in Cameroon have called on Allah to intercede for peace to return to Cameroon. The prayers were offered this week during the celebration of the Feast of the Ram, the Eid Mubarak. And one of Cameroon's business magnates dies in South Africa after a protracted illness. Now, Joseph Kaji Defoso, Chief Executive Officer of the Kaji Group, died at the age of 95. Still this week, SDF's presidential hopeful Joshua Osei says if elected president, he will shut down the School of Administration and Magistracy, that's INAM, immediately after he's elected president. And still this week, Paul Atanganji, Minister of Territorial Administration, has told separatist fighters to come out of the bushes, hand their weapons to the administration as the prodigal son. He says they are fighting a lost battle. You're watching News Roundup on Canal English. I'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest in today's edition of the program is a humanitarian. He's equally a justice crusader, I would say, and the president of the Ayah Foundation, an organization dedicated to putting smiles on the faces of vulnerable persons. Mr. Ayah Ayah Abine, thank you for joining us in this edition of the program.
Thank you for having me, Sister Regina. I'm glad to be here.
And I should also add that you're the son of Ayah Paul Abine.
We thank God for the graces. He's a noble man.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
A lot of events made news this week, from the declarations of Minister Paul Atanganji to the celebration of the Feast of the Ram and the 24-point manifesto for the SDF presidential candidate, that is Joshua Osei. But to you, Mr. Ayah Abine, what news items stood out this week for you?
I would prefer saying what news item didn't make the news. I prefer going away.
Okay.
What didn't make the news? Because I think what should be making news should be the killings in the English-speaking regions of the country. The hundreds of thousands of people that are displaced, internally displaced as a result of those killings. The tens of thousands of our people that are taking refuge in foreign land, and nobody is caring about them amongst the people that matter. That's what had to make news. Among the things that made news for me, it was almost a non-event.
Well, we are going to have time to talk about the displaced persons, especially because you are just returning from Nigeria. But I'm going to invite our viewers to watch some of the reports that made news this week. And when we come back, we will be commenting on them. Stay with us. Despite the light showers of rain this Tuesday morning at the joint Muslim prayer ground in Bamenda, ardent faithfuls of Allah stood their grounds to pray for Cameroon and her 2-year-old socio-political problems. It is the Muslim Feast of Sacrifice, the 2018 edition.
The central Imam today focused about peace and unity, especially in our beloved country, Cameroon. At least he has presented a lot of issues, and that we should be dynamic and up to date, and we should also be very vigilant, and also to harmonize ourselves by continuous prayer, and then open dialogue, and also to be sincere, let it be physical and spiritual. So that was the message from the Imam. So he did his slaughter and asked everybody to go and slaughter, with one part of the intention is that Allah should restore peace into this country, and especially the crisis destabilizing or putting things not synchronized in the northwest and the southwest region of Cameroon.
Before the watchful eyes of the senior divisional officer for Mezam, the preacher Musa Shuabu rounded up the day's prayers by slaughtering the healthy ram selected for the purpose. It is symbolic, after which other faithfuls would do same at their household levels.
Whereby our Imam pray for all of us. We equally pray for the entire nation. We pray for the head of state, his collaborators, and those in authorities, that they should continue to work for this country so that the country remain in peace, especially the people of Northwest and Southwest region. And we are back home to continue with the celebrations because for the past 10 days we have been fasting, and then today we have slaughtered the ram, which have a very big significance in the Muslim faith. And we think that Cameroon should be a good country for all of us.
You cannot afford the
No,
ram.
if you are the ram, if you cannot afford the ram, alhamdulillah, you la yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha. God does not pay something which is more than your weight. So if you are not able to have a ram, alhamdulillah, you are feel free. There's nothing on you. But if you have the means to get the ram and refuse, that is where a punishment will be placed on you.
The Feast of Sacrifice comes 70 days after that of Ramadan and symbolizes Abraham in the Holy Quran, whom God told to sacrifice a ram in the place of his son Isaac, whom he was about slaughtering, and the son to have accepted to die for Allah.
Nobody has right or power over someone's life except Allah. The statement was made by the Deputy Imam of the Bui Central Mosque in the Northwest region during prayers marking the Feast of Tabaski. Sheikh Said Wusanyuen preached peace and love.
People should live in peace. And in fact, I have repeated in my sermon the hadith of Prophet Muhammad, which is talking about responsibility several times, because each and every one of us is responsible, and you will be questioned on the day of resurrection. You know that now the reason happens, if you are responsible for that, if you are the one doing that, you know that the Prophet has said Allah the Almighty is going to question you on the day of resurrection.
The message that actually I have taken home is that we should be living in harmony, we should live together, we should love each other, and we should live in peace. He has actually advised us to be very careful as far as human life is concerned. That God himself has actually said that nobody has power, nobody has right over somebody's life.
His Royal Highness Fonsem Bin Lo I, who recently converted to a Muslim, enjoined the people of So to be relentless in prayers so that a solution to the crisis rocking the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon can be met, because according to him, he is tired of the bloodshed.
I am fed up with the bloodshed, and I don't know what to say again or to do. I've lost a lot of souls, of which I will not regain them. And I also want to tell you people that I don't need hatred anymore. I don't need hatred anymore, because it's due to that hatred that people are killing others.
The turnout at the Islamic High School prayer ground in Kumbu was impressive, and the senior divisional officer for Bui expressed satisfaction.
We just congratulate everybody and wish them Barkat Salah. We do hope that with this celebration, as the Imam said, peace will be in our country, peace will be in Bui division, and we do hope that all Muslims should learn that all of us are Cameroonian, and that we should learn to share this living togetherness among ourselves.
At the prayer ground, a ram was offered in sacrifice as ordained by God.
Allah's greatness and abundance, what Muslim faithfuls are celebrating this August 21st, the Feast of Tabaski. Sermon at the different mosques and prayer grounds centered on peace and unity.
We need unity more than everything, because what we did today is to show to people that we have just one Lord. We have just one Father, Adam, one Lord, our Creator, and one religion, the submission to His will. So we have this unity in us. We have to find it in us and to realize it in our relationship.
The Imam calling on the faithfuls on this day of sacrifice to live a humble, open life.
I tell them to let their house open, to let their heart open, to forgive and to make tolerance, to make peace, to bring peace, and to be the actor of peace.
Same sermon at the Yaoundé Islamic complex, where Imam Buba Goy Goy lauded Muslim faithfuls to be ambassadors of peace, love, unity, prosperity, and harmony. A quote by the administrators of the region who joined in the sacrifice feast.
We appreciate that the prayer of today be accepted by Allah, and that the prayer from today henceforth equally will go a long way to trace a way for peace in this country.
The Tabaski prayer occasioned to also commit the country in the hands of Almighty, especially as she prepares for the upcoming presidential elections and also the 2019 African Cup of Nations. Muslim faithfuls above all this day brings back to life Ibrahim's act of obedience to Allah, the sacrifice, and portrayed with the slaughtering of sheep, sign of man's total surrender to the will of Allah. The slaughtered sheep ram is then prepared and shared with the needy, friends, neighbors, families, and visitors in their various homes this day.
Some few weeks to the commencement of the academic year and less than 2 months to the presidential elections, the Minister of Territorial Administration on high instruction from the head of state, His Excellency President Pobia, has recently in Bamenda chaired a special security meeting of the Northwest region. In attendance were Governor Adolphe Lafrique, Mesam Senior Divisional Officer, the GO of Bamenda 1, 2, and 3 on one hand, and top brass of the 5th Combined Military Region and those at the regional level on the other side. In his opening address in both official languages, that's English and French, Minister Paul G. Atanga called on separatist fighters to act like the biblical prodigal son by leaving the bushes and dropping their arms, adding that they cannot defeat the state. After hours of discussion behind closed doors, the Minat head said everything is going on well in the region, but for some few pockets of resistance from the armed forces.
I say, as I call them, the prodigal son. The prodigal son should come out of the bush, and when you go and report yourself to the police, to the gendarme, or to the governor, or to the GO, or to the senior general officer, that I was deceived. I mean, I've stayed in the bush, and I see that I have no future. So you have to lay down your weapons, because what we tell people is that the Minat gives an authorization for you to purchase a weapon. So you cannot on your own, own a weapon. Most of those having those weapons, either they have stolen the weapons and they have bought illegally so that they can be committing atrocities.
He later visited the divisional offices in Bali and Bafut, which were recently burnt down. Here, he announced the head of state has made available a special financial package for rehabilitations.
Right. What is your reaction to this?
Yes, it is very, very unfortunate. We have just visited. This is the GO's office here in Bali, which was burned down by the terrorists. And I think it's an irony for us to asking government. We tell the government that we don't have facilities, but at the same time we are burning down government offices. We tell the government that we don't have facilities. At the same time we are burning down hospitals, health centers, burning down government offices. I think it is not reasonable.
It should be noted that there are gunshots almost every night right in Bamenda, and even the governor's motorcade was recently attacked in Bambugo village along the Bamenda-Kumbu road.
From Kumbe Balue to Fue Bakundu to my 16 Bolifamba in the southwest, moving to Anyajwa, Mbiame, Guza and Njikwa in the northwest region of the country, a total of 106 villages have been attacked since October 2017. To the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, 65 of these villages raided are in the southwest, while 41 are in the northwest region. The attacks take the form of burning down villages, either partially or completely, or sporadic shooting that destroys roof and other infrastructures. 71 of these villages have been severely affected, with no inhabitant that reside there as of this day. To the 20 less affected villages in the southwest and 16 others in the northwest, few inhabitants continue to live there, though under fear of the unknown. Cameroonians have been reacting on the reports, with others citing villages like Ngesimba and Manshok in Oko subdivisions in the northwest, Mongondo and Teke village in the southwest region of the country that have equally suffered military attacks. The Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa says the raids have been carried out either by the military or during confrontations between forces of law and order.
Anglophone Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria scramble for supplies. The struggle is real here at this refugee camp in the Taraba state in Nigeria. These Anglophone refugees fled villages and towns in Cameroon following the escalation of violence in the two English-speaking regions of the country. At least 40,000 refugees are now seeking refuge in different states in Nigeria. From the refugee camp in Taraba to Cross River State, Benue and Akwa Ibom, the problem of the refugees is the same: the lack of health care, food and other basic needs.
Have been dying, even children have been dying.
We are very sick. I have problems with my eyes. I can't see. We go to the hospital and they tell us medicine is finished.
All these problems, at times we go for doctor here, medicine, doctors,
The Nigerian government, in collaboration with the UN High Commission for Refugees, has been providing some relief to the refugees, which falls short of what is needed by the approximately 40,000 Cameroonian refugees. Teenage pregnancy is now rife, and women and children are the most vulnerable as they have limited access to food and other basic sanitation needs. Disease is now the order of the day. The Ayah Foundation, a Cameroonian philanthropic organization aware of these problems, has braved the tides of the sea for the 5th time in 6 months to provide these refugees with food and non-food relief, 7 materials to keep them alive while waiting for the resolution of the crisis. At this health center in Danare, the foundation donated some cash to permit acquisition of more drugs for the displaced persons. The president of the Ayah Foundation, Ayah Ayah Abine, says what is top on the agenda is the protection of children.
We're seeing how we could clothe the kids and ensure that they're into the camps, away from the harshness of the sun and the rains. We are thinking about getting medication for them, and we are also anticipating coming up with educational programs for them, so as they stay away from school, they don't lose their minds, and they stay away from malpractices.
He regrets that those who really matter in Cameroon are mute about the plight of Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria.
Those who really matter in the Cameroons are giving a deaf ear to this innocent kids. They've left their homes, they have nothing, they don't have food, some of them don't even know where their parents are. No water. We are just blessed that God has kept away cholera or another epidemic from the camps. You imagine what will happen. So it's very deplorable.
As the violence escalates in the northwest and southwest region of Cameroon, the number of refugees is only expected to rise, and with limited food and health supply, there are fears of more deaths to be registered. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to begin with the Feast of the Ram. Muslim faithfuls across Cameroon celebrated the Feast of the Ram, the Eid Mubarak, this week. And I would just like to turn to you, Mr. Ayah Ayah Abine. You might not be a Muslim, but I'm sure you have some Muslim friends. I mean, what's the significance of this feast to you?
I think the Muslims come together to commemorate the miracle on that wonderful mountain. Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, and God said, no, stop. Your faith has gone beyond measure. Take this ram. It was a ram, I guess. Yeah. Sacrifice this ram in place of your son. So it's just a symbolism that's celebrating that great event and that great man, Abraham, that is the father of faith for both Muslims and Christians. So it's a wonderful thing. My only problem with them is that they keep praying for peace, like the Christians do. Praying for peace is a wrong thing. You should be praying for justice. When there is justice, there's peace. Not praying for peace. Praying for peace is almost a waste of time. And that's my problem with the churches.
Yes, I think that is in part of my second question. But just to talk a bit more about the Eid Mubarak, I mean, the fact that Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, I mean, shows how obedient he was to God, even though God came and offered him a ram. I mean, such obedience that Abraham demonstrated to God, how can it be reflected to us today?
A lot. Sadly, our leaders don't obey God, they obey human beings. If our leaders could copy from Abraham, all leaders and rulers around the world will have a safer world. We will not have that mess that is happening in both Anglophone regions if leaders could obey God. So maybe Abraham, sadly, those teachings are just on camera and it ends around the eating of the ram and all that. If the leaders could just copy from Abraham, then we'll have a safer world.
Now, my next question, I mean, while commemorating this very important feast, Muslim leaders across the country prayed for peace to return in the two troubled English-speaking parts of the country, and equally in the northern part of the country that is facing the crisis with Boko Haram. I mean, Mr. Ayah Ayah Abine, my question is, beyond prayers, what more could the Muslims have done?
The first thing is that that's a wrong prayer. You cannot be praying for peace. You pray for justice. Once there is justice, there is peace. It's almost automatic. So first of all, it's a wrong prayer. And the Muslims and the Christians keep praying the wrong prayer over and over again. Now, what can be done beyond prayer? We need to understand that God's in heaven. He remains in heaven. He has given the earth to men. He will not come down and say, hey, stop killing your brothers and sisters. The troops are killing their brothers and sisters. If at all they consider them as brothers and sisters. He will not come down and say, hey, there is no way you can resolve this crisis while you maintain some people in detention, while you ignore completely people you call your citizens in foreign land dying. I go there every time. The girls are prostituting. You're a woman. You know what that means. But how do you even blame them? You know what it means for a woman to be on foreign land? Even if she's just in the national territory, she has no one to cater for herself. You know, the woman's body is such that you cannot equate it to the man's body.
So you're saying that the Muslim faithfuls would have called for justice and...
Justice! And they could use that feast. Listen, just imagine the imams around the national territory saying, let us use this feast to contribute 1,000 francs each to offer relief to our brothers, if at all they consider them their brothers.
No, but they are our brothers.
If at all, it's on paper, brothers on paper. A brother will not ignore his brother and sister on foreign land for 2 years without paying him a visit or even giving him a phone call, or just recognizing the fact that his brothers are in foreign land dying. So just imagine that they said, let's use this feast. It applies to not just the Muslims, but the Christians. Just imagine the Christians and Muslims come together and say, okay, this Sunday, all Christians around the national territory, you are putting in, their words are, you see, this religious people, their words are even stronger than the words of God, because they have substituted spirituality with religion. So they believe in anything they say is dogma. Just say 500 francs per Christian per Muslim this Sunday or this Friday. The Muslims is Friday. Or they use that your feast. 500 francs alone. You know how much money would raise in national? The Christians would give. Yeah, the Christians would give. They will give without even asking. People will give more.
So what you're saying is the Muslims would have gone beyond just praying for peace to maybe doing some contributions to help persons that are displaced within Cameroon and those that are out. And of course, I think that would have also helped to call for the much talked about dialogue, you know.
Much talked about dialogue, it ends on paper. That dialogue would surely never come. Listen.
Well, let's remain optimistic that we're surely going to have that dialogue one day, and we're going to have the much cherished peace we need in our country, Cameroon. We continue with the Minister of Territorial Administration's declarations while in a meeting in Bamenda, the Northwest Regional Capital. Paul Atanganji called all the separatist fighters hiding in the bushes to come out and surrender their weapons to the administration like the prodigal son in the Bible. Now, Mr. Ayah Ayah Abine, my question is, what's your take on this olive branch that Minister Paul Atanganji is offering to separatist fighters?
It's not an olive branch, it's drama. I personally don't like commenting about Mr. Paul. I don't like commenting about him. There's another character I don't like commenting about, the mayor of Boya. I don't like commenting about those two people, because this crisis would have gone beyond proportions if these people did not exist. They are rhetoric is the reason why the crisis has gone to the extent in which it has gotten to. How do those people come and say? It's a joke. Every house you burn, every family member of a family you kill, is at least 1 or 2 or 3 people joining the separatists or getting radical. You imagine how angry and a little radical I was when my father was in detention for reasons I don't understand. Till today we don't understand. They just pick up an old man who is the highest ranked Supreme Court, the highest kind ranked Anglophone judge of the highest court of the land, lock him up somewhere, inject him with diseases, and someday when maybe their gods have told him that tell this man away, they send him out. Just imagine how angry I was during that period. Then imagine how I would have been if my dad died in detention after the multiple cardiac arrests he had.
We thank God he didn't
understand.
die.
Yeah, we thank God he didn't, because I would have been somewhere. So just understand what is going through the minds of those people whose houses have been burned. They've lost everything. They've lost their loved ones. Some of them have been maimed. Like the small Median living with us. She almost died, but God saved her. Do you think those people was for any reason, especially with these people having this kind of dangerous rhetoric? I have the impression they are on a secret agenda. They are there fueling the cause.
But there should certainly be a way forward. I mean, we need peace in our
country. They know the way forward. All of us are going for peace. I'm a humanitarian. I value life above everything. They know the way forward.
And what is that?
There is no way forward without releasing all those people who are in detention. We're wasting our time. We've released people who picked up arms. No, who went for the president's life. We've released them. And they are even holding posts of responsibility now in the country. How we not release people? We just said, hey, we need to change. It is not going here with education. It is not going here. Some people didn't even go for the Amazonian cause. They just stood on coffins and said, hey, the government delegate is not doing his job well. Let him do his job well. And they're in detention in the name of the terrorism. Release those people in detention. Release them. If we don't release those people, we're wasting our time. Just imagine that Mr. Julius Sissoko gets out of detention and says, guys, let's give dialogue a chance. I bet you at least 70% of the separatists would follow him.
Okay. Hope they are listening. But now we're going to continue to talk about Minister Paul Atangaje's visit to the Northwest. He had opportunity to visit the divisional office of the GO, that's of Balinyonga, and that of Abafort, that were burnt down by unknown persons. Or maybe
and he visited no house.
Let me just continue to say that the minister promised that these structures will be rehabilitated soon. But there are critics who say that rebuilding the structures when the Anglophone crisis is escalating is like putting the cart before the horse. What's your take?
The first thing is that the minister visited some administrative structures that have been burned down. He visited no house of civilian that was burned down. He visited no civilian in hospital that was injured. It tells a big thing. The government cares, they don't care about what's happening to the civilians. Their issue is their interest, and their interest alone. It's like Anglophones don't exist. Now, rebuilding the structures. First of all, the structures didn't have to be burnt. We're getting across the red line just because the government is refusing to do the right thing. So the structures don't have to be burned. That's the first thing. Secondly, rebuilding the structures in the heart of a crisis is added provocation to those who did the burning. They didn't have to do the burning in the first place.
Yes, that's what I want to say, that we have to be categorical.
Yes, they didn't have to do the burning
no
in the
matter
first
where
place.
it's coming from, should not be encouraged.
It shouldn't be done. We've gone quite far. We should be progressing. We shouldn't be using money that was meant to rebuild, to keep progressing, to come and rebuild what has been. Yeah. So we shouldn't be doing that. But what was very funny about this gentleman, if you can call him a gentleman, is the fact that he's caring about structures. So property, state property, is more important than civilian lives. He's making no comment about even the girl that was raped by our troops that are just around the corner.
But the person that was accused was convicted by the Minister of Defense, and I'm sure he's going to be brought to book. The little girl whose video went viral.
Listen, the man that raped a girl in Bamenda, we hear he was tried. I don't know if it happened. He was tried in Bamenda. Strange. Then one man who stood on the coffin, or some other people who said, hey, things are not going right, was shipped from Bamenda to Yaoundé. And you're talking about convicted. If at all he was convicted, it's a whole gang that had to be convicted. There were a lot of them there that day. They knew what was going on. They say, hey, guy, take this girl there and go and do the business. It's surely something they've been doing for a very long time.
But certainly, I'm sure investigations are still on to bring...
There is no investigation in this country that leads to anything positive.
How are you sure about that?
It's, you know how the multiple reports, Ezekiel some days ago, all the people that have been taking state money that are meant for taking care of some vulnerable people. There are no reports that always result in Cameroon.
And with that, we hope that justice will be done, but we are going to continue to talk about a related topic. Now, you are the president of the Ayah Foundation, and you've had the opportunity to visit refugees, Cameroonian refugees, I would say, that are seeking refuge in neighboring Nigeria due to escalating violence in the country. Now, you are just coming back from Nigeria. Can you paint a picture about the situation of our brothers that are over there in Nigeria?
The Ayah Foundation was to return from Nigeria with 10 girls under the instructions of my dad. That place is not a place for women. It's not a place for our people, first of all, but women and kids are most vulnerable. And 7 of the girls are pregnant. We returned with 2 of the girls. One of them is to join us in the coming days. That just gives you an idea of what's happening there. Our girls are prostituting to survive. Our boys are begging on the streets. Our grandparents are killed by the day. Diseases. We lost 8 of our people 4 weeks ago. We even buried them at Danare. That is what's happening in Nigeria. And it is very strange that the government cares nothing. They don't care about that. I think a lot of them.
But there's a plan ongoing. I mean, a humanitarian plan of the head of state to assist displaced persons from.
Fake. The first thing that has to be done is to call for a ceasefire. We need a ceasefire to assist people. We don't go killing people, then we come and, like the hen, you go killing his chicks, then you come and throw some grains of corn and say, come and eat. Comes and eat. As it's going, you're shooting it on the leg. And you even come again and even cut off. It's true, you're supposed to cut off. It is madness. Call for a ceasefire. After the ceasefire, we can go helping people. They don't even want to do that. It's just, maybe that money was raised for something else. Since the money came up, how much aid has gotten to the people in the bushes? Has anybody gotten to the people in the bushes? No, how do you intend helping people without even recognizing the fact that the people exist? We've had about 7 speeches since these people went across Nigeria, from highly ranked persons, including the #1 Cameroonian. We don't even mention that we have our countrymen in that part of the world. That's why I'll even go there, even me, they know me very well, and they tell me to test the food I'm bringing, that they have the impression it's from the government, and they feel the food is poisoned. So I should eat that food
but
first.
You know, sometimes these things take time. Maybe it's a process, and the aid will eventually reach the displaced persons. We are going to continue now to find out what is the Ayah Foundation doing to help these people who are living in very squalid conditions in Nigeria.
Just a brief comment before answering the question. That aid may never get to those people. I don't think they have any plan of doing any such thing. Look, we have refugees, Central African refugees in the east, we have Nigerian refugees in the north. They have aid every day. There are national campaigns, international campaigns for them. But our own countrymen, they don't care. So to us, charity begins abroad, it doesn't begin at home. Not even begin, it doesn't exist at home. Regarding your question, we've been to Nigeria 5 times. We're just from Nigeria. We take to our people food and non-food relief saving material as often as we can. We try to do it every month. We have a lot of support coming from wonderful people, including some strange francophones. I say strange because if we've gotten 100% help, 99.9 has come from the English-speaking part of Cameroon, English-speaking Cameroon. So we are going now into September. I think we'll touch on school resumption very soon. Yes. I hope we're going to September. What we want to do is to get at least 2,000 refugees back to school. We'll be privileging the girls and the kids. School in Nigeria, not in Cameroon. Here we don't have power to do anything. We don't want bullets coming.
I mean, that brings me to my next question. We are less than 2 weeks to the start of a new academic year, and there's a lot of confusion amongst people, especially in the 2 English-speaking parts of the country. There are some areas where registration has not yet started. Well, but there are other schools that have started receiving some students, but it's really very timid. I mean, you are a humanitarian and you are a human rights defender. What's your take on school resumption?
I think it's a rhetorical question. I would stand for education. I'll stand for education. The kids have suffered a lot. They've suffered for 2 years. We're sacrificing the kids. But there are big birds. Let me first start from those who do not want the kids to go to school. The argument they advance, and I fell for that argument too sometime, is safety. It's true. It's very unsafe out there. Okay. People have been drawn out of hospitals and killed by the troops. The hospitals have been attacked. As recently as last week, you saw the images. Even ambulances, the no-go areas, are attacked, shot. The churches have been burnt. Corpses have been picked up and dropped into the churches. Clergymen have been killed. The streets are neither safe. The most of the deaths have come from the streets. The bushes, no way safe. So you cannot advance the argument of safety to say, no, it's not safe, so kids should not go to school. If it's about safety, then we should not go to church. Even the clergymen have been killed. We should avoid the streets. We should ghost the streets because the most of the deaths are on the streets. We should ghost our homes. You know the Tebit family, I even went there. A whole family killed. We should ghost the hospitals. We're not doing that. So we shouldn't hide behind the safety argument. I'll go for the education for all argument. Everybody needs education. If we're preaching education, it should be for everybody, including those in detention. My brother Babila, a very good friend, is in detention in Kondenge. He needs education. He was a student before he was picked up. Our friends in the bushes. I remember my good friend Anthony, he's 8. He always tells me, oh, Uncle Ayah, I want to go. The parents have refused that I bring him to go.
So you are for school's resumption?
For everybody. And for it to go, the refugees have to come back. They need school too. They need education. Those in detention, release them.
So
they
we'll
too
go back
need
to the ceasefire
education.
we're talking about.
So we need to cease fire. Withdraw the troops. We need the police there in the English-speaking regions of the country because the population is considering every troop and the gendarmes as an enemy. We need the police there, not the troops. We cease fire. Those who call for war are those who call for a ceasefire. Now, if you call for a ceasefire and the other party does not respect the ceasefire, then you have every reason now to come back with force because somebody is not expecting the ceasefire. So the government and the interim government, the government calls for a ceasefire, the interim government respects the ceasefire, and everybody, the detainees come out of prison, the refugees come out of Nigeria,
and they look for a way of sitting on one table, talking and forging ahead.
Very important.
We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to be examining the 24-point manifesto of SDF's presidential hopeful, Joshua Osi. Stay with us.
This, one of the very last encounters of the National Executive Committee, neck of the Social Democratic Front, the SDF party, before the presidential election. This 23rd August, John Fronde and his office fine-tune strategies for the victory of their candidate, Joshua Osi.
First of all, I can tell you it is not the last meeting, and secondly, we're confident. If we weren't confident, we wouldn't be here today.
Equally on menu, the planning of the campaign, schedule for field work, and elections in the Northwest and Southwest regions, stronghold of the Social Democratic Front.
Mr. Biya, when he became president, most of the voters were not yet born, but there is one thing they understand and you learn in school is that they gave him over a country with peace, work and fatherland. We no longer have peace, we no longer have work, we no longer have our fatherland, and so these people are sending me out there to try to reclaim all of that. So it's not about who has more money, it's not about the situation in the Northwest and the Southwest. Those are exactly the reasons why the Cameroonian people want this change.
And so, the SDF presidential hopeful will begin field trips.
The law disposes that campaigns start 15 days before the election. We have in front of us an incumbent, and that is our challenge, to get rid of that incumbent.
The call for an opposition coalition still open, as the change the SDF presidential hopeful says will be a great one. The national chairman of the Social Democratic Front, John Fronde, that united the session at his Mkolfulu residence in Yaoundé, is very confident of the capacity of the opposition to overthrow the regime in place.
Ameliorate living conditions of Cameroonians by increasing the minimum wage from 38,000 today to 160,000 francs CFA. This is one of the key points revealed by the 2018 presidential candidates of the Social Democratic Front SDF. In a 46-page document containing the socio-economic and political future of Cameroonians, Honorable Joshua Nambangi Osi intend on revolutionizing infrastructure, set up giant industries and intend stimulate growth in the country. On the form of state, Honorable Joshua Osi promised to implement a 10-state federation with the two subsystems of educations in the country to be handled and strengthened mostly by the federal administrations. If governance has been noted to be poor in Cameroon, the 2018 flag bearer of the Social Democratic Front says the National School of Administration and the Magistracy (ENAM) will be abolished. To him, it is a symbol of colonialism, with specialized schools in state universities within faculties to train Cameroonians to govern the country. To change governance at the helm of the state easily, Honorable Joshua Osi stresses on the need for a second-round presidential elections with the use of a single ballot with the mandate of the president to change from 7 to 5 years.
Due to the ongoing problems of insecurity in the Northwest, the elections governing body ELECAM has announced that all the 1,770 polling stations in the region have been merged into 228 polling centers. The announcement was made by the board chair of ELECAM during a meeting with stakeholders in the region recently. The predominantly SDF intervention in the hall told ELECAM to tell the head of state to prolong his mandate, solve the Anglophone problems before convening elections. They have hotly contested the decision of squeezing polling stations to create accommodations polling centers, describing it as a move to dysfunctions supporters of the SDF candidate who are mostly displaced persons hiding in bushes, adding that displaced persons in other towns should be allowed to vote where they are. The SDF has accused ELECAM as a revision of Minad reappointing to manage elections again.
If you are talking about security and people have to move kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers to get to a polling center, how will they move to get there? And who secures them to move, come, vote, and go back? And after that, what next? We had the situation after the senatorial elections where councillors were kidnapped. We had a situation where there were less voters and the electoral college and the electoral college was limited. But we had crisis. One more of thousands of people in the Northwest.
But representatives of the CPDM party kept a long silence during the meeting.
The prevailing situation, there is nothing much you can say, because if you get to my constituency, Marina 2, and you have to scale down, not reducing the polling stations, but scaling down the polling centers for managerial purposes as per the prevailing situation. What else do you think? I think we have equally been brainstorming from our own side, but I think the very fact that ELECAM as the mentor of this whole exercise is making upfront conception, which are looking more or less realistic. We don't have to go about keeping further debates on it.
After the heated arguments, the ELECAM team said all the points were still open to suggestions for adjustments. One of the baobab trees in the economy of Cameroon has just fallen. Joseph Kadji de Futso died early this morning in South Africa, where he went for treatment. At his home at Bona Prison in Douala, the economic capital, the gate is locked with tight security. At the age of 95, Joseph Kadji de Futso was the mayor of Bana in the west region of Cameroon, founder of the Union Camerounaise de Brasserie, producers of Kadji beer, King beer, Special Top, and K44. Joseph Kadji de Futso also wrote his name in the annals of football with the creation of the Kadji Sports Academy, where great talents have passed through like Samuel Etofis, amongst many others. Kaji Defoso was also involved in the production of plastic equipment. He also had an insurance company. It's for this work that the government of Cameroon awarded him on the 20th of May 2017 with a National Order of Valor. He will be buried in his Bana village in the Opankam division on a date yet to be announced.
Welcome back. Now, the presidential hopeful of the Social Democratic Front, the SDF, that's Joshua Osei, in a press conference on a Wednesday, declared that if he's elected the president of Cameroon, the next day he's going to shut down the School of Administration and Magistracy in Nam. Mr. Ayah Ayah Abine, that's an outrageous statement, don't you think?
Well, before coming to his statement, let me comment about this politics thing. See, I hear a lot of people saying the opposition is not serious. If the opposition comes together, the opposition can come together, and then Jesus Christ comes from heaven and stands as their candidate. They will not still win. Jesus Christ, the one and only, they will not win.
Why would they not win?
Because everything belongs to the President of the Republic. Elekam, him. Constitutional Council, him. Even some members of the opposition are his people. They're just playing a game. So it's just drama. The second thing is, I find any Anglophone standing for president elections to be a very greedy man.
No, but there is this argument, Anglophones, that people who are standing for the election say that the need, like some claim that the current problems we have in our country were created by a particular regime. So if they stand for elections and they win, they are going to be able to solve some of the problems we have in our country, especially the Anglophone crisis, you know, the crisis in the far north region of the country. So there is a need for the constitution to be respected, for elections to hold, and for us to forge ahead.
You think we're in America or maybe Canada. We are in Cameroon. It's just drama.
But we have to be optimistic too.
Optimistic. Well, I prefer to be optimistic that tomorrow is Judgment Day. Jesus Christ will come down in flesh and blood and judge people. That's more optimistic than to go with this one. I'm saying it's drama. It's a waste of time. I find anybody from those part of Cameroon, that part of Cameroon, standing for elections to be a greedy man and a selfish man. How do you go telling Juliet, for example, Juliet, she's one of the victims of the burning of houses and burning of people in houses. How do you expect Juliet in Kwakwa? I've met her twice. She carried the bones, the remains of Mami Abi, her grandma. She buried those remains. I don't know where she's gone to. Possibly she's joined the radicals. How do you go asking Juliet to go and register and vote? How do you go asking Median? Median's with us. Maybe she would watch this. She received 4 bullets on the face. She almost died. How do you expect Median to go and register and vote? Any role that is not centered around the human person, any activity, any action, is just a waste of time. The priority for Cameroon now is solving this crisis that is claiming lives. We need all these lives, especially the lives of those we don't talk about, the families that are losing their troops. We need those lives to build a stronger society. We shouldn't be losing these lives. Solve this crisis. We can have elections even in 200 years. We can amend that constitution and postpone the elections. We don't need elections. Elections have solved no problem in Cameroon. They have solved only one person's problem and one party's problem against 99% of Cameroonians. We don't need that. So, abolishing them or not abolishing them, it won't even change anything in the lives of Cameroonians. So, talking about elections, honestly, is one of the most stupid things, I believe, any Cameroonian.
No, I mean, they're just respecting the constitution, as I will say, because we're supposed to have elections. But when you look at the 24-point manifesto of Joshua Osei, what do you think stand out? Looking at his economic policies, education, development, agriculture.
One thing stands out. I'm looking at a candidate like all the others and parties that have not understood that priority is human life first. If they had understood this, that's why I don't want to go into his points. If they had understood this and they were honest enough and they weren't as greedy as they are and they were honest enough to understand that this is about life first, humanity first, and gains and popularity and fame and money later, then all of them in one voice would say, Mr. Bia, please, the Anglophone problem, the citizens there, those lives who are losing there, is a priority. Elections can come after. But because they are, excuse me for saying it's the truth, a greedy set of people, it's about greed and making money and fame. It's because they belong to that category of people. That's why they'll be talking elections. And I would vote because I'm a patriot, I'll vote, but I'll vote for none of them. I'll even prefer voting for Mr. Paul Biya, the current president, because we have received nothing from him for 36 years, or 37 or 40 or whatever. We received nothing from him for all this amount of years. So I just prefer that he stays there until the good God even calls him than voting for any of these people, because I consider them to be very greedy people.
We are going to digress a little bit, and we'll talk about this obituary. I mean, one of Cameroon's prolific business magnates has passed on to glory. Mr. Joseph Kaji de Fosu died at the age of 95 in South Africa on the night of Wednesday, breaking Thursday, after a protracted illness. And Mr. Ayah, this is a big loss to the business world in Cameroon, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a very big loss. My only problem about him, from my findings, is that he was a mayor at 95.
He was a mayor of Bana.
At 95. Wait, at 95, I think you even need someone to brush your teeth at 95. So I don't want to talk about somebody at 95 who is thinking in the interest of his people, but that aside.
But he's
been a great mind.
Bana.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why the people wanted him to stay there.
You can do that without being a politician. The Ayah Foundation is helping a lot of people. We don't necessarily need to do politics. He's a great mind. He's a great loss. I think he contributes for, I think, at least 1% of the GDP, or maybe 0.5% or more. He's employed lots of people, lots of young people.
The Kaji Sports Academy,
the Kaji Sports Academy,
the Kaji Group, the UCB. I mean,
yeah, they brought up great Cameroonians,
employing a lot of people.
A lot of people. My prayer for him, since he's dead, he's already dead. You know, once you're dead, you're dead. There's nothing that can be done about you. My prayer for the family, the groups and all that, is that somebody succeeds him that will do even better.
Exactly.
To elevate the poverty that is, it's the order of the day in Cameroon. Employ more youths, even more and more. I just pray that somebody would succeed that will do better than he did. Because the prayer for every parent, for every family, is that somebody succeeds that does even better.
That can carry on the legacy.
Yeah, and do better.
Yeah.
Not get in there and start living some very flamboyant lifestyles and chopping all the money.
We are rounding up for the program, but before we go, maybe you have some last words for our viewers?
Yeah, I have some last words. I am praying both camps, because there are two camps in the current crisis in the English-speaking regions of the country. I am praying that they put before them reason and the interests of the common man in anything they are doing. Why do I talk of the common man? Let me talk about the scammers of the current Anglophone crisis. The scammers are the rich people, the rich and the well-to-do. This is what they are doing. They are shipping out their kids from that part of the country into French Cameroon and abroad. They are shipping them for them to go and further their education. I'm concerned about Pa Agbo Ayuk, his father in Tinto, or Mami, Sister Juliet, far in Kwaka in those forests. They don't have what it takes to ship, to do same. They don't have even enough to eat. If these people from both camps can think about these people that are not rich, the scammers, that are not well-to-do, if they can act in the interest of these people, then I think we'll resolve this crisis. If at all we want to resolve it.
Sure, we need to resolve it because we need peace in our country.
Yeah, and we cannot have peace without justice. All those people burning those houses. You cannot tell me I'll be praying for peace. No, I'll be praying for divine justice on them. All those people getting into people's house and raping their kids. Don't tell me I'll be praying for peace. No, I'll be praying for justice. Because once there is justice, then peace it's automatic. Peace just follows suit. I want to be praying for peace. I'm praying for justice. And all churches and the Muslims, all those people, if they are serious about this thing, because I think the problem is the church and the church. They've lost it all. If we have to resolve this crisis, we'll go through the churches. The churches just need to go on their knees and pray for justice for 1 week, if they are serious about it. And not think about the subventions that are coming their way from the state, because it's about looking at those subventions and say, okay, because there's some people that started talking sense and talking tough from the beginning of the crisis, but some days after, they started talking nonsense in the name of peace. It's not peace, it's justice. If they can go on their knees and tell their Christians, as it was done in Nigeria some time ago, let's start praying for justice and start acting justly. We'll resolve this crisis in 30 minutes.
Thank you so very much for coming on the program, Mr. Ayah Ayah Abine. He's a human rights defender. He's equally a humanitarian, and of course, he's the president of the Ayah Foundation. It's been a pleasure having you in our company. I want to thank you so much for watching the program. My name is Regina Fonchia Atandak. Take another rendezvous with us next week. But for now, goodbye and God bless.